Guys, welcome to the show. Part number 4 with Magnus Samuelsson. Remember, if you haven't seen the other 3 parts to this, you need to check them out, guys. Some absolutely fantastic insight from this fella. And we'll put the links down in the description. Mag, sorry to keep you so long, mate, but time for one little finisher, mate. One little finisher. I wanted to start this piece really with when you first became aware of strongman. What was your sort of introduction to World's Strongest Man? Were you sort of right there at the absolute outset, or was it a little later?
Well, the very first time I have two early memories from strongman. One where there were like a family back then in Sweden. We had 2 TV channels, and that's it. And one of the TV channels once had a like Friday evening kind of format thing, and all of a sudden this Icelandic big guy from Iceland shows up, and he is talking about strength, and then he lifts up. He had brought this round, the Atlas stones with him, and he said, back in Iceland we all have to lift this to become a man, and the John Paul doing his thing, and he did that. So that's my very first memory from that sport, really. And then we bought ourselves a paddleball antenna, and we started trying to pick up American TV channels and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we found a contest, like a team contest with Casmire and a guy called Odie Wilson.
Oh yeah.
Right. And we had Magnus Samuelsson competing together with Alti Arneson and on some kind of castle in UK. Mm-hmm. And I think I watched that tape pretty much as you can without really ruining it. So for me, when I myself came into the sport, I knew a lot about the strongman. That was something that I was looking up to these guys, and they did what I was, but I didn't really believe that I can do it myself one day. I just, like we talked about earlier, I kind of slided into it all, and things went the way it did.
One of my enduring memories, mate, was in Leeds, just sitting and listening over breakfast to yourself and Magnus Samuelsson. That was ace. I will go honestly. When they throw dirt on me, mate, I'll remember that. That was fantastic. That kind of little insight that you get from just listening to the mutual respect and warmth that was at that table that morning was fantastic to listen to. Just the stories, being party to that front line was fantastic. And what that illustrated to me was, obviously, you guys, you do build a special bond, don't you, through this stuff? And now watching yourself and Magnus, you were super tight there. Yeah, there was massive.
It pleases me so much to hear you saying that. And I think what happened where we spent so much time together, and we were all there chasing the same goals. We all dreaming the same dreams. So we're the same people in many ways, and we all know how much it costs to be there on that level. So I think we have a mutual respect for each other that way. Mm-hmm. And Magnus well, of course, for me, I mean, he was fantastic. He was a really good athlete, and people try to say that so and so he was only fast, and so and so he was only doing that. Give the man some respect. He was a fast, very strong athlete. He can do whatever, and he was really hard to beat in a strongman contest. Mm-hmm. And then he had some health problems pretty much at the same time as I started to do really good. And Magnus didn't walk away because of that. He had some problems that held him back, and he kept on doing it. And I respect him a lot for that, because that shows that he did this because he loved it.
Sure.
He at the time already held 4 World's Strongest Man titles, and pretty much all the other titles you can find on this earth. So he didn't have to continue to prove anything for anyone.
No.
But he did it because he enjoyed competing in strongman and hanging out with twin souls like that. So yeah, all respect for him, and he really was something else.
I mean, you say it there. The fact that the guy had 4 World's Strongest Man titles, and if you look at Mag's career, he is the guy that came into World's Strongest Man as he was an alternate. He came in as a substitute, and he won. I mean, if that doesn't tell you something about that guy's mental approach to competition, then you're missing something. And it's in him, isn't it? You know, you only have to be in his presence for 5 minutes, and
you can see how important this. Well, we get older, and we try to, and we maybe in a few ways we tend to say that, you know, we don't care so much anymore, but we all know contest by contest, pretty much minute by minute, especially the one that didn't go so good. So I'm sure if you've been talking to Magnus Samuelsson, for example, if you start to talk about contests where he didn't win, he's pretty soon going to tell you why he didn't win.
Tremendous, yeah. That's it, isn't it? And it's absolutely true. I love that. It's absolutely true. Unbelievable stuff. So you look at, and obviously you spoke a minute ago about Jean-Paul Sigmarsson, and the fact that he was so initially influential on you, and obviously Bill Kazmaier. In our last episode, you were speaking about Bill, who my co-coms at the Giants event, and that's a character right there, isn't it, Bill Kazmaier? I mean, my God, it's an absolute dyed-in-the-wool character that is. But in a way, it must be quite a weird feeling for you to know that you cut from that same cloth, in that you are obviously evidenced by the fact that the reaction of the crowd when we were in Leeds, you were an inspiration for future generations who've come into the sport and fans of the sport that remember your titles, all the experiences that you had, and it's almost it's something that'll live on forever. I mean,
it's a really one of those things that I can't really grasp it. And that has probably to do because I've seen myself do the whole journey. Mm-hmm. I still remembering going to the local arm wrestling contest and being super happy about winning it, you know, seeing that as a big thing to win the super local arm wrestling championships. And then once in a while things happen and it kind of hits me in the face a little bit that, for example, a few things like that. I went to England the other year to meet my agent. So I come up the subway from the airplane from Heathrow up the subway in Covent Garden, and the very first guy I run into says, "You're Magnus, aren't you?" And I was thinking, how can you see that? Like, I'm 50 years old, covered in beard and all that. It amazes me that people still recognize me. Now, I was standing in Hollywood a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, time flies, and I was waiting for a cab, and it's Friday evening, and we're on Hollywood Boulevard, so there's a lot of people and a bit of a party night, so I don't really want to talk with anyone, so I back into an alley, and it's a bit dark there, and I'm watching this sign where the taxi is supposed to pick me up at, and all of a sudden this drunk guy comes in, and he's taking a leak in the alley, and then he looks up and he sees me, and he goes, "Hey man, you're a big dude. Do you play American football?" And he says, "Nah, I used to do strongman a bit." "Ah, like that Magnus dude." And I was thinking, yeah,
a bit like him.
A bit like him. And it's kind of funny that you travel around the world, and I can't really, for me, I can still smile about it, that you do something just because you love it. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you meet people that have seen it all over the world, and it's kind of hard to grasp.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's up till this day, if I need a favor done, for example, at an airport or something, I will always try to find the biggest guy I can in the counter because he's probably lifting weights. Yeah. And then I just go and say hi and give him the passport. And normally, up till this day, I fly pretty good after that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely awesome. But that's good, isn't it? That it carries over that carry over into your general life. I mean, it's nice actually that guys like yourself who've achieved that accolade do get to sort of dine out off it a little bit after that, because it's a hell of a thing. I mean, everybody wants to be strong. So many my young lads go out and want to be strong. That's what they want to do. And when you've achieved that absolute the alpha, the man in strength globally, what an amazing accolade to hold that is.
It's a privilege, and also it's been beautiful to see how strongman and strength training in general, the journey it made. When I started, we were all the gyms were in basements, in the cheaper part of town, and now you can walk out of any fancy hotel in any town in Europe or wherever and just walk down the street and you're going to find a gym within minutes, and it's not going to be full of only big guys doing deadlifts. You will find the whole community within it, and you have, I mean, all the CrossFitters and all that. Well, they take bits and pieces from strongman and created their thing. There's a bit of strongman in that sport, and it divided, but the whole recognition for strength training as something to find inspiration and health and also joy from, the journey it's made has been amazing.
I mean, I suppose your country's right at the forefront in that anyway, in terms of the sort of strength sport. Used to be just that place for the big, powerful, burly guy. In Sweden, not the case. Sweden's always been up front with the sort of female involvement in strength and the respect for women in strength. They'll, Pippi Longstrump and all that. It really, it's there. And if you look at the Swedish ladies arm wrestling team, massive amount of people involved in that, and stronger than any team from a female perspective in the world. Maybe even stronger than the Swedish male team at the moment. If you look at, like you say, the journey that strength has been on, do you find it? Do you think it can get much bigger than it is now? Or do you think it's sort of peaked? Because if you look at CrossFit and the explosion of CrossFit around the world, if you look at the fact that we were talking earlier about the Giants events selling out arenas, how big can this thing get, mate?
Well, nobody really knows, but saying that, every bullet's going to land sooner or later. And you have a few things that changes the whole prospect of everything. But if you go back 10, 15 years, everything, all media coverage has to be done by TV. Mm-hmm. So unless you can make a concept that was successful on TV, you're never going to make any big money out of the sport.
Sure.
That's why tennis did good, and why some other sports were easy to capture on tape, did fairly well. And then all of a sudden, we have a different world where we have internet and boxing and sports like that. They make more money with no TV cameras because the audience will find the sport. And to answer the question, I think CrossFit and strongman and all that will do really well until something else does even better on media. That's the fact. If somebody probably sooner or later going to take bits and pieces of something else and create a development in any kind of way. And it's hard. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, do you think it's going to be popular with women doing clean and jerk? I would say, no, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And now everybody's doing that. So it's hard. It's almost impossible.
Amazing how you end up at the destination.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to sell what the kids is going to go for. It's not going to be us old timers that's going to start the next revolution. It's going to be the young ones. Yeah.
In terms of sort of your own involvement in strength sports now, do you find yourself that you were so encapsulated within it that you did move away and distance yourself from that in favor of other things, or are you still very actively involved as a viewer, as a fan of strength and strength sport?
When I started, I was super busy for a while, so I kind of lost everything. I mean, the first year I stopped and we came home and I did Dancing with the Stars and we won that. And then I remember it was 16 days, the first 12 months I was home, that I wasn't on stage, or I didn't make a strength show.
Wow.
So I really tried to squeeze out everything from that thing before I left it. Mm-hmm. And then I started in a TV series and I was acting every day for a year. So it's always been like super intense the whole time. So I didn't follow it so hard. And then more, of course, a little bit had a check on it, but not so hard. And then the last, I would say, 3 years, I followed it way harder again. And I think I'm now started to get momentum on my new life, so I don't need to have hands on the whole time on that, so I can enjoy life and do other things. And with if they didn't eat bats in China, my plan was to go to follow the Giants live harder this year.
Yeah, I mean, who are the guys that sort of are your favorite athletes now? Who are the guys that you're most impressed by in the game?
Super hard to say. I mean, obviously, all the big names are big for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that, if I'm really going to get impressed by somebody, it's not going to be about the physical performance by itself. If you can add a nice guy behind it as well,
sure.
That will always make the athlete 10 times better in my eyes.
Yeah.
And
we had the Stoltman boys on here the other day, and we had the Stoltman boys on here the other day. Funny, maybe the worst interview I've ever done. They hardly had the internet working up there, and the camera wasn't great. Those two big lads, but I'll tell you what, like yourself, such an endearing pair they are as well. The Stoltmans. Oh my God, so lovely lads, just great blokes, you know.
Perform. I mean, I watched. Did they both compete? One of them competed when I was over in London last year. Or no, we were Manchester.
Manchester, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now it's impressive when you know how hard it is. It's really impressive to see them. And then, of course, Eddie Hall. Not only is he has done what he has done, and he's done it beautifully, but he's also such a great ambassador, I think, for the sport. I think he plays his card beautifully, and he does everything really well.
He sort of pushed the boundaries to a different place again, though, didn't he? He's that sort of trailblazer. I mean, the 500. Then he went and followed that on with the Apollon's Axel world record. Came, but for a damaged ankle, would, in my opinion, certainly have got the log as well. A real freak of static strength, Eddie, without a shadow of a doubt, and that's propelled him.
But also, like I said, the first time I came to Leeds, and my very first contact with the sport again, I've been away for quite some time. I come back, and the very first guy I see is Terry Holland standing outside the hotel. And I walk up to him, and he's a really nice guy, and I spent a lot of time with him before. And after 2 minutes, it felt like I'd never been away, like we had a nice conversation. And all of a sudden, somebody's patting my back, and I turn around, and there is Thor. So he shakes my hand, and he says some nice words. And I was thinking, this says a lot about a man. You know, if you're in his position, you don't need to go up and say hi to anyone. No. They're going to come up to you and say hi.
Mm-hmm.
Just sit still, and everybody's going to show up at your table. So it shows a bit how they are. You know, it's a really nice group of people.
Yeah.
And, I had breakfast with Eddie Hall, and it was a really nice, warm feeling to come back and see that. Well, a lot of new faces, but it's still the same atmosphere in the sport. Yeah.
I mean, what's the situation like now in Sweden in terms of your involvement in that? Do you still attend or get invited to any of the big strength shows over there? Is that something?
No, well, I've been invited the last 2 years. It were. I mean, to be honest, for a while when I competed, it was a bit of an infected situation here in Sweden. It's always hard to be a saint on your home market. But I think a few of the young kids, when I was competing, the people younger than I were, they saw me as a blocker for them to get out on the international scene.
Oh, okay. So there's a bit of natural jealousy there.
Yeah. So as soon as somebody's dream didn't happen, it was obviously my fault. But that had passed away since a long time, and now everything is good. But for a while, there were a bit of an envy thing going on.
Okay.
And I haven't really spent so much time thinking about that, but everything has changed now, and I think the sport is doing fairly well here.
Mm-hmm.
They have a problem to find media for TV coverage and so on. So it's a bit like everywhere else. We need to do that. They need to do that by themselves. And And I also think that strongmen were very strong TV-wise during the years we did it. And then things happened, we had some deaths and so on, and BBC pulled out of the sport and all that. And that made strongmen, they forced strongmen to take a different turn and make some changes. And I think MMA and the whole martial arts sport pushed through tremendously well during that break, because a lot of the TV slots strongman had was on Eurosport and so on were all of a sudden taken by them.
Given to them, yeah.
And so then strongman did what Giants Live had done and so on. So it took a different turn, and maybe it turned out all for the better in the end. But the Swedish scene, media-wise, has been suffering a bit from it, even though it's starting to pick up again now in the last 2-3 years.
Now, one of the things I can't sort of let this go without addressing with you, Mag, we saw you go over from arm wrestling into strongman.
Yep.
Okay. We saw Vytautas Lalas go from arm wrestling into strongman. But obviously you with the most clear, really relevant, European champion, world's strongest man, that very clear and relevant step there. Recently, we've seen this sort of move where some strongmen are looking to cross over into arm wrestling. I mean, Eddie Hall recently, prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, had signed with World Arm Wrestling League to compete against their middleweight champion, Rob Vigent Jr., in a left-handed match. Where are you at physically now, mate? And the question everybody will want to know, would you ever consider taking on an arm wrestling match again at this point in your career?
Well, physically, I'm doing what I always have done. I go out to the gym 5-6 days a week, and just as soon as we finished here, I'm gonna. Well, it's shoulder biceps day today, and some core. But so even though I'm not trying to be 150 kilos heavy and go for the big weights anymore, I'm a bit messed up in some joints. So but I try to do slightly lighter weight, but as hard as I can with those.
Yeah.
Unless I have a proper reason. If somebody would say we need you to be 145 kilos heavy for this movie, or for a good reason, then I could probably go pretty hard at it. But the risk for injury gets, every time I get a bit too cocky in the gym, I tend to limp or.
Yeah, you feel it.
I'm getting more and more like a one-trick pony. If I find something that doesn't hurt, I'm going to play with that exercise the whole day.
Not feeling, mate. Let me tell you, after 3 joint rebuilds, I'm in exactly that. That's where my mindset's at.
But also saying that arm wrestling is something. If I would do of course, I'm not going to compete in strongman anymore. I've done that. I was blessed enough to do it for 14 years and finished with that. But arm wrestling could be something that I might do one day, just because it's a nice thing to do, to play around with. You have the whole technique aspect to it. Of course, you need the strength, but you can try different ways to beat an opponent, and so it's and also it was more boring, I guess, before when I did it, because there was too few super heavyweights.
Yes, yeah. Whereas now there's a massive amount worldwide. Yeah. What is your weight right now, mate? What are you walking around at?
130, maybe one.
Yeah, about 130 kilos, and in fantastic shape. I mean, when you came over to the UK, one of the things that the comments that I got were around, holy, look at the condition. You looked in shape. I mean, you had a film role that you were prepping for, I think, at that time, but you were in.
Well, we started with I thank you, sir. First of all, I was working on a movie, and I played one of these medieval warriors, and I was thinking this is a good time to try to shape up a bit. So I did what I could, and I haven't done anything amazing like that. I just throw away all the fast carbs. And if you have enough muscles, you don't really need to be that much on a diet. I just try to avoid the fast carbs, and I don't eat any sugar in any ways. But for me, it worked really good. I feel good. I feel great being a bit lighter. And so I'm probably going to stay like this. I haven't really lost any strength. So, and I think, to be honest, it's probably not healthy to stay 150 your whole life. I think you don't need to save so much money than for the older days.
Now then, well, I'm conscious I've had you on here for 25 minutes of the fourth show, and I won't keep you too much longer, I promise, but this is the one, mate. To bring it to sort of a bit of a climax here, a culmination of what we've talked about, I wanted to ask you 2 questions. The first one, in your entire career, which is some bloody career in strength sport, mate, let's be honest, what do you consider to be your greatest ever feat of strength?
Oh, I would probably say that in my book, every time that I did something that I didn't believe myself that I could achieve, that's the ones that sticks out for me. If I won the stones in a particular contest and stuff like that, it doesn't really say so much because it was a good event for me. I could be much more proud of being, I don't know, winning a deadlift event or something where for me the odds was way less.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, if I have to pick something, the feeling of winning the world's strongest man, that contest, because it set the foundation for my whole life, more or less. So that will be on the list. And I think also the arm wrestling fight where in Bahamas, that's also one of the mark stones that's going to go with. Otherwise, I don't really have I can't really pick out one of them. There is a few events when I lately I've been finding a lot of competitions because I moved my office. Then I find tapes and I'm like, I almost forgot this one, and I start to look at it, and then all of a sudden everything comes back, and it's a beautiful thing. But in my mind, I would say I had a pretty bad back injury in 2006 in China.
Mm-hmm.
One disc bulked out really bad, and the disc below that flat. So after that, had almost 6 months on my back by just laying down, really crippled. And then I came back and did the World's Strongest Man in Anaheim.
Mm-hmm.
I did a few mistakes in there. I was concerned about all the events that I was afraid for my back. So I trained those really hard, and I ended up missing some of my good events. I ended up overall in 5th place, but I knew within myself that on a good day with the same events, with the same people, I could have done a few notch better. But saying that, in that contest, I did a few things that I'm fairly proud of. Mm-hmm. For example, I did all the lifts in the deadlift machine they had done in the qualifying, which for me, after that year, I was very proud of. And I knew when I left Anaheim that this is probably the last time I'm a proper contender for the podium. And it was kind of a weird feeling leaving Anaheim. I can
imagine. Yeah.
The next year I knew it was a little bit like a poser because I had all the sponsors, and I said I tried to win. I won a few Grand Prix. I'm not saying that, but I knew for myself I'm not going to go for the World's Strongest Man title anymore. So for myself, I kind of rounded off my career in Anaheim. And if I can rephrase the whole question and saying what I'm most proud of in the sport of strength is that I did it for 14 years, and I won my second last contest, and I won my second first one. So I had a fairly long career, and I was fairly all right through the whole career. Because all the sports is always, regardless which one you pick, the standard is always going higher and higher. So it's a bit tricky to stay on top of it for that long time. When nobody's watching and if I think about something, that's the thing I'm most proud of.
And so you should be, Magnus Samuelsson. So you should be, brother. Absolutely awesome. Mag, I want to honestly thank you so much, mate, for taking the time to come on our little show and talk to us about this. It's got to be one of my favourite ever interviews. I've genuinely loved listening to you reflect back on some of the high points of your career, mate. It's been fascinating and thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you. The honour is all mine, and I'm looking forward to see you over in England as soon as this madness disappears.
100%, brother. And I hope at some point you can come back on. Maybe we can do some reviews of the Giant shows and so on. And on a personal note, mate, I hope yourself, Kristin, and the family, everybody's okay throughout this. And I look forward to seeing you down the tracks at the next Giants.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Guys, remember, if you've enjoyed this, please go back, check out the first 3 episodes with this fella. And remember, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you all again soon. Thanks so much.